Yeah, it's me. Yeah, I responsible to a couple of videos, I think. Yeah, mention of them anyway. So there's this guy called the Guy in the Hat 1, so I'll leave a link to that. And another guy whose video didn't show up, well, it doesn't have Inmendham anywhere, so it didn't show up in my search. There's Inmendham there. But anyway, the description, I mean, yeah, well, YouTube doesn't fairly index videos. That's just a fact. Anyway, so anyway, junk in the comments. So I didn't see this except he sent me a PM. So at least I found it that way. I don't read my PMs too often, but when I do, I read them. And so yeah, if you make a response video, it's probably a good idea to do that if I don't know you and such well enough to check your channel and all that kind of crap. Just because I'm subscribed to you sometimes, that doesn't mean I'll see your videos, because I don't really do the subscription thing on YouTube. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. Point is, I'm just pointing to these two videos. So one was basically on the evolution thing and the death thing, and I don't think we fundamentally disagree on much. Just emphasis maybe. I'm still going to argue that the programming is in the cells, it is in the DNA. Death is sort of a necessity to the successful organisms. Basically have to kill off the old for the best interest of the new, and obviously they have to do it in some way where their progeny are likely the beneficiaries of that circumstance. But yeah, I think that's just sort of like part of the game, and it's been part of the game for a long time, and so I think a lot of organisms are just kind of stuck with it. Even if they wanted to change it, it takes too much evolution to change it, because the death is built into us so many different ways. We have programmed aging, and we have programmed disease, vulnerability, and all of that stuff. And so, you know, you can't just change one part of it to have much of a result. And so, yeah, it doesn't. We don't evolve out of it. So immortals aren't going to be something you're likely to see without us creating them. Evolution isn't going to create them. Obviously, it's counter to the function. The DNA is just so obsessed with the replicating thing that it can't see past it to say, oh, wait a minute, we got it good enough, now let's just make them immortal. It just can't switch those gears. So anyway, it's not a terribly important subject, but it's sort of interesting. Just, you know, it's part of our life experience, is this dying thing. And, you know, but it's all kind of relative. You know, some organisms live 45 days, and apparently that's enough. It'd be enough for me, I think. But whatever, anyway. So anyway, then this Guy in the Hat thing, I remember, I watched this video like a week ago, and whatever it was, I don't know, a few days ago, and week in internet days. I think he was semi-critical, but I just don't remember. Scottish guy or something, some sort of one of them over there kind of people. Decent enough response, all that kind of crap. I think it was like I should have some other agenda, should talk up the other fixing of, yes, it's natalism and socialism. You know, but yeah, I mean, I do plenty of videos talking about, yeah, let's fix what's broken, but again, this idea that investing in fixing is probably stupid. I mean, if I'm really going to make the decision of where we should put the money, it's like if we're going to try to do something about malaria, I would argue go for the cure, don't go for the treatment. The treatment's kind of expensive, so yeah, sacrifice the current victims for the long-term gain of curing the disease, that kind of thing. I'd say the dollar's better spent on the cure than it is on the Band-Aids. And I'd sort of make the argument here that the real money is in migrating people to a way of thinking and being, and to have socialism or a better economic system, or to have a more, or to even have some sort of resource economy or any of this other stuff, requires such a massive reprogramming of human beings that the simpler reprogramming is just to get them comfortable, as I am, with the idea of them not existing in the future. I mean, once they're comfortable with the idea of not existing in the future, you know, the human race, then you've solved all the problems, because there's nothing for us to do but make messes and clean them up badly. So yeah, it's easy. And So, but anyway, like I said, I just don't think this criticism is fair. I make plenty of videos about plenty of other subjects. I have all these other channels. You can find them on my channel page or whatever. Their videos are out there already. And I do make videos on this channel about other subjects. Not lately, but I do. I have. There's a ton of them. So it's not like I haven't talked about this shit. So I just don't really accept this kind of criticism. I'm all for improving the way things are. I'm all for incremental fixes in anything. I'm all for petting any puppy you can find that needs a pet. I'm just saying that the real game, though, is just to stop making puppies. Yeah. So, whatever. Let's see what I want. Oh, yeah, so Shock of God, guys. Schlock of God. Made a video. It's semi-interesting. I mean, it just gets to get into this optimist-pessimist thing. Depressive, optimist, or depressive, or whatever the other word for the opposite of that would be. Happiest or something, or whatever. Idiot. Yeah, idiot versus rational depressive. And you know, how much that taints our perspective, of course, and you know, I'm still gonna. There is this. You have to still make an argument, so it still is philosophy. So even if you are semi-lost or swimming in your own negativity, you could critique somebody for having a negative opinion, but you still have to argue the argument. You still have to argue what is being stated, regardless of its source and regardless of the motives of the source. So it really doesn't matter. I mean, if you know, a bigot can make good arguments occasionally. It doesn't, you know, just because they're a bigot doesn't mean you can just discount everything argued. And you could say I'm bigoted negative, but you still have to deal with the arguments. Just as I have to deal with arguments made by those I would claim to be bigoted positive by just obvious, you know, excessive psychological attachment. I mean, they're grotesque addicts and nepotists and all of these things. I mean, you can see these overt psychological categories that you can put the person in that are essentially nullify any idea of them having any kind of Spockian intelligence. And but you still have to deal with their arguments, and their arguments are inane, so they're easy to deal with, but I'm just saying you still have to deal with the arguments. And so, but part of your premise is that somehow we don't have any memories or any knowledge of moments in our life where we felt comfortable and relaxed and at ease and things were going good, and that we don't somehow know what it's like to be in that state of being. And, you know, I sort of think that's kind of a bogus premise. You know, it's kind of, you know, I mean, it's obviously insulting to say that we somehow don't know that we are in different psychological states in our life, and those psychological states make it more easy, more difficult or easier to see certain things as tolerable or acceptable. And I would argue that, yeah, even though I would concede the psychological phenomenon that, you know, the horrid economic circumstances, or, you know, the suffering of animals, or, you know, some other circumstance might seem a lot less interesting to me when I'm caught up in some sort of enjoyable event or activity. I would argue that I know that the reason why I don't care is because I do want to shield myself. I want to stay in my happy place. And the truth is, it's a happy place. It's not a real place. It's not the real world I'm seeing. It's a little isolated piece of the world that I'm playing in. And it would be a cheat to say that's the whole total of reality, or that's the real game. And I could fairly say quite easily that I could imagine in those good times. I don't want to do it. It's no fun to do it, so I don't do it. I don't have to do it. There's no necessity to do it, so it doesn't get done too often. But I certainly could be in some comfortable, happy place, swimming in the pool on a nice summer day, and it's really nice, and I'm having all kinds of pleasant, self-serving, self-satisfying thoughts. Yeah, I could just say, okay, now I'm just going to turn that off and think about the real context that right now, at this very second, there's somebody in horrible, awful despair, weeping and just totally desolate of any capacity to feel a single spark of hope or ambition or comfort. And I could acknowledge that, life has totally failed, that there's no way this compensates for their suffering, that, I wouldn't initiate the whole game, it's a stupid game, blah, blah. I can do that. But I'm just saying, obviously I would have no incentive to do that. I mean, you can be in a romantic circumstance, and for what purpose, what function, what use would it be to kill your boner, by thinking about the context of your life or your future, or I'm going to be dead in 20 years and I'm going to die horribly probably, because that's what everybody in my family likes to do, is die slow and miserably. Or some other, what you're not going to sit there and invite contextual reality. You're going to stay in your current fantasy and attempt to preserve that comfort and that pleasantness. And obviously when you're in the negative circumstance, that's a little harder to do, in the sense that, I mean, you're invited to do it. You're wishing you could do it. But the truth is, you can't do it. I mean, that's why it's hard to get out of the depressions, is because the lies aren't as effective. There's no personal, you have every incentive to get out of the negative state if all you had to do was have some happy thoughts. But the problem is the happy thoughts are all trivial and silly, and they don't have any realness to them. They are like our fairy tales. They end with happily ever after. They don't acknowledge the truth. All right? Fantasies that are pleasant don't acknowledge the truth. And fantasies that are unpleasant usually are acknowledging a much bigger contextual truth, even though they're probably still underestimating how bad it really is. So, deal with that truth. Deal with the fact that the ladder out of depression is usually going to be made out of a lot more lies than the ladder that you would use to temper or destroy, or accidentally or on purpose, any kind of positive bias you possess. So I think I could quite effectively, rationally argue that we can see the difference between the integrity of migration from one state to the other. The migration from the happy state to the negative state is personally no incentive, and factually almost every incentive. I mean, if you want to be honorable to the truth, you have to degrade your happiness. And the inverse is true from the negative perspective, looking at a way out. There's no, the personal incentive is to get out, okay? There's every incentive to grab hold of some, climb anything, but the truth is you can't make anything that's real. All you can make is lies. All you can climb out of the pits with is some sort of narrowly focused, unfinished, non-contextual bullshit. Some immediate, trivial nonsense is the only hope you have to get out of a pit of depression. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's this. I'm not going to say it's a decisive. It finishes this segment of an argument, or just annihilates any further conversation about subjective personal bias. But I'm just saying you can't really argue that there is a a double negative bias, that there's any bias on the for a person in the negative state of being to be hostile towards anything of real substance to get them out of there. And that the real problem with that place is that there isn't anything real to grab onto. There's just crap. And again, I would argue from the other side, from the optimist biased side, we can see the obvious editing, the obvious cheating of the truth to maintain the optimism bias. The only way you maintain it is to thoroughly cheat the truth, to thoroughly cleanse it of perspective. I mean, really, it's just that simple. I mean, the pain has, the images of the negative have real integrity, and the images of the positive are frickin' parades and cheering fans at the bullshit match. I mean, it's just, you have so little, your sunsets and your little gooey crap has so little real integrity. You just, you scratch it a little tiny bit and it all just washes right off. Because that's all it is. It's a whitewash. It's a pink wash of hope and wish. And it doesn't have anything to do with the truth. So, yeah, I think that's probably enough. We'll just keep this video short for a change. Shorter. Less tediously, monotonously long. Yeah, how about that? Anyway, till next time. There was some other shit to say something about, but the hell with it. Till next time. Yeah.